Hey y'all, it's Kassi. Welcome back to Sermons for a Revolution. Each week I answer questions about how to heal yourself so that together we can heal the world. Today's question is, how do you know if you have ungrieved grief? And what do you do to deal with it? When I was in my early 20s, I was suddenly smacked in the head with a baseball bat with grief. And I had no clue because it didn't feel like anything I knew was as grief. It felt like my brain was broken. And I thought I was going crazy, but my life looked really good on the outside. I had the job I loved, I was making a good salary, and I had an acceptance from an Ivy League school. So I was like, what's going on? I'm supposed to be feeling as good as it looks on the outside. But inside of me was just filled with this sea of dark terror that I was never going to recover from whatever the hell this was. And the only thing keeping me from checking into a mental institution was fear that if I went away for a while, I wouldn't be able to get my job back, so I'd be broke. 3 years later, I finally wound up in front of a therapist who interviewed me for 3 days, and then she looked me dead in the eye and she said, "You have had a loss and you are afraid to grieve." According to A Course in Miracles, all healing is a release from fear. Grief is a form of fear. Healing from it forces us to reckon with reality and face it as it is and not as we want it to be. And that is scary ass shit, I'm not gonna lie. And contrary to popular belief, there is an end to the grieving process, but it usually takes more than a couple of casseroles and a week. It takes time and it takes some effort. You experience grief whenever you experience loss. And there are 3 primary forms of loss, 2 of which we never talk about. Death is a loss, we know that's a loss, but change is also a loss. We may grieve a positive change, even if we like it better now than it used to be. Choice is a loss. All choice involves loss. So think about throughout the day how many choices you make and how many moments of grief you might be experiencing. And again, even if we make a positive choice like choosing to marry somebody, there's still going to be grief of our independence or our freedom, or maybe of everybody that we didn't marry. So we have a reason to grieve every single day. The fact that I actually needed to grieve never occurred to me because we have no education in loss. Nobody teaches us how to grieve. Were you ever taught how to grieve? Nobody taught our parents, nobody taught their parents, but somewhere back in time, our people, your people, knew how to grieve. They had a process, they had a ritual, and they really did it. They did the hard work, and they were there for each other in community, and it was a hard thing and it was a beautiful thing. But our generation has to rediscover grief for itself. And it's astonishing to me that we've managed to work grief completely out of our culture. The DSM-5, which is the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual for Mental Disorders, is now calling tears a symptom. Just think about that. The funeral industry has exchanged funerals for celebrations of life. And y'all, I'm all for a party, but sometimes you have to bring mourning to the funeral. Sometimes you have to bring sorrow to it so that you can really honor a loss. And in school we learn advanced math, but nobody teaches us how to grieve. I never use that math. I have a calculator, I don't need it. No offense to math teachers, my husband was a math teacher. And have you ever been to a doctor and you told them you were sad and they said is there a possibility that you have ungrieved grief? No, they just hand you a prescription, which I used to love. We live in a culture of ungrieved grief. We live in a grief negative culture. And we've totally bought into this idea that sorrow needs to be medicated and denied. So when we experience a loss, most of us have no fucking clue what to do. It's like we're all participating in this big conspiracy of pretending we're not terrified of loss. And that was totally me. So I'm there with you if that's you. And without a community and elders to teach us the ritualistic aspects of grief, we've devised these elaborate schemes to avoid our feelings. I certainly did. Grief is a tunnel. And I sat in front of the tunnel and I drank. And I did downward dogs in front of the tunnel. And I tried geographical cures. I was moving around so much that I could never had to face myself. Ungrieved grief manifests as social anxiety often. We just feel disconnected. And it can manifest as an unreasonable fear of losing your job, or obsessive fear that the people you love will die, or a fear of leaving a relationship when it's clearly been over for years. There were times when I definitely thought I had finished grieving, and y'all, I had not finished grieving. There were pieces left undone, and that happened over and over again. Every time someone died, every time someone changed, every time I changed, every breakup, every rejection, every time I made a choice, all these were little losses, and I would grieve it a little bit, but it was too scary, and I didn't know who to talk to about it, so I just stopped at the front. I stopped a little bit into the tunnel, and then I ran back out and did my downward dog or whatever I did. And there's so much grief right now because every international tragedy and national tragedy is a grief. And if we do not grieve our losses, if we cut the process short, that ungrieved grief can alter the trajectory of our lives. So here's how you know if you have ungrieved grief. You're alive. Your heart is beating. You're a human being. We all have ungrieved grief. It's part of the human design to avoid pain, even if it costs us our life or our livelihood. But one surefire sign that you have ungrieved grief is that you feel awkward when people are crying in front of you, or when people are sad in front of you, or express any form of sorrow, that you need to smack it down. That is a form of ungrieved grief. Other signs can include anxiety, cynicism, which was one of my favorite ones, anger, finger pointing, feeling sorry for yourself, hiding the truth about what's going on with us, and so on. All that's just ungrieved grief. There's probably a little bit more to it in some cases, but if you can get down to the grief, you can move a lot with that. And the most common reason people tell me they've been pretending to be okay is because they don't think they can handle the pain if they really go through this, and they don't think other people can handle their pain. They think that their family would be burdened if they fell apart. And I had those same fears, and I can tell you that I had to fall apart in order to come together in a new way again. And I'm going to make sure that you have a process so that you can get through this grief and you can start grieving. We've all got to do it. And this practice, it's not a meditation. Meditation is about training your mind. Grief is about paying attention to your feelings and to how you're feeling, focusing on them, and seeing them all the way through. Not stopping and then going and eating a burger or something. Really seeing your feelings through. The practice is called 30 Seconds of Grief because I'm really fucking creative. So number 1, set a timer for 30 seconds. Number 2, sit down and be completely still. Relax the tension in your face. Relax your shoulders. Breathe all the way into your belly. Otherwise, be completely still. Focus your attention to the place in your body where you feel pain. Most people tell me they feel pain either in their chest or in their solar plexus. So just pay attention to that for a moment. And allow yourself to feel any feelings that come up. Don't deny them. Don't worry if you feel nothing. If you feel really sad, if you start sobbing, or if you start laughing, all that is totally normal. We're not used to paying attention to how we feel. We're not used to really going inside. Even advanced meditators can spend years inside their head and never really go inside and notice how they're feeling. Whatever you feel is normal, even if you feel almost numb, and just keep practicing. If you feel so sad you can hardly take it, just do 30 seconds. Just try to withstand 30 seconds and then start again tomorrow. You will have bitten off just a little bit of the grief monster and swallowed it, and then just wait until tomorrow to start again. Keep practicing, and you will eventually no longer judge what happened as good or bad. As crazy as that may sound right now, you will get to that place, and you'll finish walking through the tunnel and into a new and happy world. You can also start a grief practice with small and mundane losses. So, say you're out to dinner with your buddies, and it's time to order dessert, and you spend some time choosing between the key lime pie and the chocolate cake, and you order the key lime pie. I do not know why you ordered the key lime pie, but now you need to grieve the chocolate cake. So acknowledge that you made a choice, which involves loss, and you experience a teeny tiny grief, a teeny tiny loss. And if you find yourself going there with what could have been, like, oh, I could have had the chocolate, just stay with the truth of what happened. I could have chosen the chocolate, but I chose the key lime pie. Return yourself to reality every time. Grief requires a level of reverence for your life that is rare today. And grief can become your superpower if you allow yourself to feel it all the way through. One final tip. If you're grieving a choice that you made, don't be imagining what if. scenarios. This often comes up if someone has experienced a choice like abortion. Like we choose one way, and then some people will be thinking about what would have happened if. Don't go there. That's actually avoiding grief. That's not grieving. So bring yourself back to reality and say, but I didn't choose to have a child or give that child for adoption. I chose to have an abortion. If you're thinking about the job that could have been, the relationship that could have been, anything like that, it is avoiding grief. So bring yourself back to what's happening now. And as unbearable as it may feel, that loss, that pain is only going to last for a limited period of time. And if you let yourself go all the way through, you will be utterly changed by grief. I promise you. When you become a serious griever, you will become so in touch with other people's emotions that you'll intuitively know how to comfort people. You'll be more in touch with like the vibrations in the room, and anything blocking you from your gut intuition will just fall away. Grief is surrender. And in grief, you surrender to pain, and you just let pain have its way with you. There's nothing you can do about it except just be with the pain. You can just sit with it and acknowledge it. You acknowledge change. You acknowledge what's happening, even if it's completely unacceptable to you. And I know right now in the world there's a lot that's completely unacceptable to us. But that's the work of grief. And being in the state of least emotional resistance gives you superpowers in the political resistance. I promise you that. So your spiritual experiment for the week is to practice 30 seconds of grief every single day this week. So for the next 7 days, practice 30 seconds of grief. Practice noticing your feelings when you make a choice instead of stuffing them down or pretending like something wasn't a big deal to you. Don't marinate in them, just acknowledge them and then return to the moment, more present than ever, and I promise your life will change. In the comment section, check in with us throughout the week and let us know how it's going. I know this is a big one, so just keep checking in with us and let us know how it's going, and we're here for you and be there for each other and really support each other and build each other up in this. For more on grief, be sure to check out my book, May Cause Love. It's available everywhere books are sold and also at my website. And let's cause some love, my friends. We're going to get 2 copies of May Cause Love into every single women's prison, rehab, and shelter in the United States and Canada. So head over to my website and look at the tab that says Let's Cause Love. Click it and join us. Oh, if you want to submit a question, please do that. I love getting your questions. Thank you so much to all of you who've been sending your questions, and it's been amazing to read them. And so just go to my website and fill out the form on the page that's about the YouTube channel and send it over to me, and I will answer them on this channel. I can't thank you enough for your participation. I love you guys, and I'll see you next week.